Hello, my name is Art Delinsky, and you are listening to the Art Deli Sideshow. I'm so glad you're here. Today I'm going to be going over a couple of stories from June that didn't quite get as much attention as I think that they should have. So, let's begin. Starting off strong, the Jewish American Security Act was introduced to the House on June 10th. This bill requires or demands three main things: for the Department of Education to create a comprehensive Title V framework to address anti-Semitism on college campuses. It also asks for an extra $1 billion allocation to houses of worship and nonprofits for security resources. And lastly, to create accountability for how social media platforms address anti-Semitism. Let's go ahead and listen to this clip from Senator Jackie Rosen, who co-authored this bill, about what exactly she hopes this will accomplish.
We've been working on this bill for well over a year now. It is the Jewish American Security Act, and it's going to address three things to fight domestic anti-Semitism. One, on our college campuses, we're going to be sure that we have a mechanism for Jewish students and actually for all minority students to have this mechanism to report and be able to get their complaints heard and mitigated. So there's a lot going on there to protect our students. Next, we're going to protect our houses of worship. And my heart goes out to the folks in San Diego yesterday.
At the Islamic Center,
yeah. The Islamic Center. We need to be able to harden our places of worship and religious community centers through our nonprofit security grants. So we're asking for more funding for that and more funding for our local police departments to help protect vulnerable religious communities within their purview. And the third place we're looking at is online. So if you're a platform that has more than 50 million users, we want you to report on what you're seeing against anti-Semitism, how you're responding, how the algorithms are working, because we want to protect free speech, but there's a place that it goes from free speech into fomenting violence.
We're going to get back to Senator Jackie Rosen in a moment, but I wanted to give a little bit of context for a couple of the things that she was talking about. First off, the $1 billion allocation. This is an extra $1 billion that will go to an existing program called the Nonprofit Security Grants Program. It is administered by FEMA, and the funds come from the Department of Homeland Security, and it started in 2005. It provides nonprofits and churches, mosques, any kind of house of worship, allocates funds to them so that they can get literal security, like whether it's security officers, police officers, just any kind of security for themselves and their communities, because unfortunately, the reality is that mosques and churches and temples are getting shot up, unfortunately. So this is, I guess, the government finding a solution, to that. But as it exists right now, in order to receive funds from this grant program, there is language that stipulates that the recipients of these funds cannot have any kind of DEI programs, and they have to cooperate with ICE. Now, this is the existing language under the Trump administration. This bill, if becomes law, will take that away. As to say, let's say you are a mosque, for example, and let's say you have a women's reading group or something that's specifically for women or something for them to create community amongst themselves, right? Depending on how you word what that group does or what the point is or the mission of the group is, that could be considered DI under the current administration. And therefore, your mosque could be ineligible for these grant funds, which can literally be a matter of life and death. So this bill I thought it was only for Jewish institutions, but it's not. It's for any institution or nonprofit or house of worship that would want to partake in this grant program or want to apply to it. So that's good. I would say that is good. Is there maybe something in the language somewhere in the bill that I've missed that maybe is shady? Maybe. I don't know. Devil's always in the details. But this part of the totality of it, I like that. I fucks with that, as they say. The other thing that she mentioned is the college campus mechanism, quote unquote, that will be used for students to report anti-Semitism. When I looked at the language of it, it was more detailed than that, actually a little too detailed, but I'll give you a general overview. This will include adding an anti-Semitism coordinator. And now you might be thinking, does that mean this person is going to coordinate more anti-Semitism? No, it's just an unfortunate title, and perhaps they should find a different one. This would mean that there would be someone in the Department of Education who would be the chief advisor to the Secretary of Education on how to counter anti-Semitism and oversee implementation of federal strategies, the federal government's strategies to counter anti-Semitism on college campuses. That's a big freaking job. As it exists, obviously students on college campuses, like, shit happens, there could be discrimination that happens. Of course that happens. It's impossible for where there's millions of students, So obviously they need a place to go if they feel, and to report properly, have a process, a grievance process, if you will, to make sure that these issues are brought up to someone in an organized way where it's documented. And yeah, it makes sense that the Department of Education would provide that. And it was odd to me that they don't have something for anti-Semitism or Jewish students to go to, since I'm pretty fairly like 110% sure other minority groups do. But this will extend that to an anti-Semitism coordinator, which again, unfortunate name, please find a new title. There is a little bit of, how can I say this, fuck shit that you can maybe find, because then we are getting into that murky territory of, well, how is anti-Semitism defined? And I really don't want to get into that in this episode because there's other stories I want to get to. But in this CNN interview, the host actually brings a really good point about what would define anti-Semitism when it gets to, college campuses. So we're going to listen to that, and then I'm going to wrap this part up in just a moment. Back to you, Senator Jackie Rosen.
I mean, an example is from the river to the sea, right? Some people chant that, and it just means we want justice for people, in Israel-Palestine, and that's what we want. Other people mean it in a much more violent way. Who decides what's...
Well, I think the point is not who's going to make the decision. We want to see what's happening online, try to do an analysis of that, and how is the algorithm, what the algorithms do. It's great if you're shopping and you say, oh, I want a blue jacket, and they say light blue, dark blue. Then they kind of get you down, and this is what they say, going down the rabbit hole. It's terrific when you're shopping and you're trying to find just the right color blue jacket, but we want to see if the algorithms themselves are taking people down to a rabbit hole where they'll commit violence. So this reporting mechanism from our large platforms, I think, will be instructive to us as maybe some future ways that we can fight online anti-Semitism.
Fair point. I really love that question. If someone posts from the river to the sea, who's going to define what that really means? And Jackie Rosen, like a true politician, didn't really answer that, but she did give us a little bit of insight to the third part of this bill, which is the social media platform. The gist of it is that it will force social media platforms to publicly report on how they're handling anti-Semitic content. Jackie just now said that the point isn't who's making the decision about what's anti-Semitism, but that's bullshit. In order to flag something as anti-Semitic, you have to define it so that it can flag it. What the fuck are you talking about? I'm going to just keep going here. It requires a federal government to track how online anti-Semitism connects to real-world violence. It's asking social media platforms to track two main things. A, publish a detailed transparency report every 6 months. Every 6 months covering how much anti-Semitic... how much anti-Semitic content they find. I'm not laughing at the anti-Semitism. I'm just saying, like, have you been online? And it's not like, no dig to Jackie Rosen. Like, I get communities are scared. I get this. But, like, come on, dude, give me a break. Like, do you want me to report every time I see something, like, that's racist or bigoted on the internet? Are you fucking kidding me? Have you been to the internet? What the fuck are you talking with me about? And now you're saying that these social media platforms need to do a 6-month report. Every 6 months do a report about the anti-Semitic content that they find. That's asking a lot. They have to also report on what they did about it and how their algorithm amplified it. That would be just an interesting thought experiment. I would like to see that. The account, and also that the account has been suspended. So again, it's making it seem as though it's going after the social media platforms themselves because it was not working. People hated it when they were going after the individuals. The second thing that it asks, and this is more with the Department of Justice and DHS, these social media platforms have to send Congress an annual report on trends linking online anti-Semitism to offline violence, plus policy recommendations. The bill is currently sitting in committees. Oh my God. Next story. Also in June, Representative Khanna was endorsed by AIPAC Tracker. If you're unfamiliar, Track AIPAC is an online database and advocacy project that provides in-depth analysis and insights into the influence of the Israel lobby on U.S. democracy. More specifically, what they're known for is exposing how much money was invested into U.S. politicians by AIPAC and other pro-Israel groups. More recently, they published the Peace Pledge, urging lawmakers to sign it. Khanna was the first to do it. Let's take a look.
I'm getting ready to sign the Track AIPAC pledge. It's pretty common sense. It means that we shouldn't be sending our tax dollar money for foreign wars overseas. We should be spending it here at home. And it says that we shouldn't be taking money from AIPAC or all of its affiliate PACs or bundled money from those organizations. And that we have to recognize the genocide that took place in Gaza. So I'm going to be signing this pledge, and I hope others will follow.
Representative Rashida Tlaib did follow suit and also took the pledge. The Peace Pledge, which stands for Pledge to Enforce American Law, Counter Foreign Influence, and End War Crimes, is a commitment to reject certain political money, you can't see me, but I'm winking, tied to U.S. foreign policy and human rights standards. The signers promise not to accept funds from AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, the Democratic Majority for Israel. These are all acronyms. I'm doing you a favor. The Republican Jewish Coalition and Christians United for Israel, or any other kind of like network that has unconditional support for Israel. People who sign this, like Khanna and Rashida Tlaib, also commit to recognize Israel's actions in Gaza as genocide and oppose all U.S. military aid to any country, including Israel, whose forces commit serious human rights violation. And there's also part about permanently opposing the permanent merging of the U.S. military and intelligence cooperation with foreign services like, well, for example, the IDF, which may or may not be happening. That's a story for maybe next week. And it closes off with financial reforms, fuck yeah, including overturning Citizens United. Kind of wonder who else will join them. If you have any clue or any guesses, pop it in the chat. I would love to see it, or in the chat, in the comments. I don't fucking know, whatever the kids are doing. Please engage with this video. It really helps with the algorithm. Anyways, speaking of algorithm, we're going to go to our next story. On June 22nd, a group of Californians filed a class action lawsuit alleging that gas station operators, including Walmart, BP, and 7-Eleven, who have hundreds of gas stations across the state, used artificial intelligence pricing tools to illegally inflate and pump prices of gas in the state. That's a lot of fucking words for saying price fixing. Let's go ahead and listen to this clip real quick.
AI is being used to violate the state's antitrust law, which in essence says that businesses cannot work together to control or raise prices. Well, the defendants in this case include BP, Circle K, Marathon, 7-Eleven, Walmart, Albertsons, and the crux of this is that they allegedly use an AI tool called Calibrate, which is also a defendant in the case. And what the lawsuit is alleging is that the gas station operators hand over their sales data to Calibrate, and Calibrate then looks at what's being sold, when it's being sold, and takes other factors into account, and then comes back via AI with a recommendation for how much you can charge and still get away with it. In other words, how much will the market bear? Okay, what the lawsuit is alleging is that by reducing competition in the marketplace through many different people using this same tool, what that does is it artificially raises prices by as much as 30 cents a gallon.
Like I said before, that's a lot of fucking words for saying price fixing. And in the dynamic pricing episode, I talked more about it, and we went over to Salesforce.com because they're one of the providers that have dynamic pricing, AI dynamic pricing, and one of the frequently asked questions was, is dynamic pricing price fixing? And it just gave a... Whatever, I'm not going to spoil it for you. Go ahead, check it out. Art Delinsky Sideshow. Go check it out. So the Justice Department they said something really funny. I'm going to read from this a little bit. A legal theory where a central actor coordinates competitors without direct contact between them, even without direct communication between the companies involved. DOJ officials have said that an algorithmic system generates several digital records, logs, timestamps, and data trails that can strengthen rather than complicate prosecution. Plaintiffs are not alleging that the gas station's operator met to fix prices. They're alleging that a shared AI tool did it for them, which is so funny because the calibrate fuel systems, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. It's, dare I say it, it's in the name. It's calibrating the price. Dare I say it? Anyways, this is fucking hilarious. And basically this AI system functioned as like a back room dealing with itself with the data that these people put into it. So my question is, again, kind of with all the questions that we had around AI and the way that it's being rolled out and the way that folks are using it, who's getting in trouble? Like, who's going to jail? You can't put a fucking handcuffs on a robot. You know what I mean? I don't know. We're gonna keep our eyes peeled for this one. But also it brought a really interesting question in my mind about whistleblowers in the world of AI. You know, if we're automating all of these processes and back end stuff, who will be able to whistleblow when things are going awry? I don't know. But speaking of whistleblowing, I actually don't know, that's not related. We have some really good news. We're going to wrap up this awesome episode with positive, good news. Next story. Oh, I figured out how that connects. Accountability. That's how it connects. Also, on June 22nd, a federal DC judge blocked restrictions on sugary foods and drinks for SNAP recipients in 5 states. This comes after the USDA created a pilot program which would give waivers, which will change the federal definition of what food is, and then can take away certain food items like soft drinks and sodas inaccessible through SNAP. Before the ruling, there were about 20 states that were participating in this like MAHA-inspired pilot program, and they were able to actually remove some of those sugary drinks, sodas, energy drinks, candy from being accessible through SNAP. Let's go ahead and listen to this really, really short news item, and then I will be right back to make some really great points.
A district judge in Washington, D.C. ruled that the Department of Agriculture didn't have the authority to ban the purchase of sugary drinks and candy using food stamps. The Trump administration had issued waivers that allowed some states, including Texas, to restrict those food item purchases through SNAP. The ruling only applies to Colorado, Iowa, Nebraska, Tennessee, and West Virginia. 5 food stamp recipients filed a lawsuit saying they need the restricted items for health and wellness.
So the 5 food stamp recipients or SNAP recipients that actually sued the USDA said, like you just heard, that they rely on this food. And it was actually really interesting. I highly recommend reading the whole thing. It's up on the internet. Maybe I'll link it. I don't know. I might be lazy. Some of them had really interesting cases where they're like, I'm diabetic, or one of them was like, my kid is diabetic and they have special needs, and like they only have a couple of safe foods that they can eat. Okay, legitimate. Another one was, listen, all you can say for sure 100% is all of them have standings because all of them live in those states and they can say that this impacts them. Were all of them equally heartbreaking and, oh my God, yeah, dude, give this kid some candy? No, absolutely not. Listen, people rely on this stuff. I understand. But my point is, the thing that I found really interesting, the judge agreed with them, so that's on the judge, is that the ruling and the actual debate in the court wasn't about whether this food is healthy or whether kids should or shouldn't be eating candy that was bought through SNAP funds, or if someone poor should be able to have a sugary energy drink or a protein bar. It was not even like that. It was more about whether the USDA could even legally change the definition of foods and then create a pilot program around this exclusion of certain food items from being defined as food. And the federal judge ruled that the USDA can't do that. They don't have the authority for that. They cannot approve state waivers to restrict what SNAP recipients can buy with their benefits. So way to go to whoever pushed this case forward. I think that this is a win for the simple fact that the government can't like just dick you around like this just because you rely on the government. Anyways, the point isn't about whether sugar is healthy for kids. That's not the point. That was never the point. It was just, in my opinion, a facade, like a MAHA Trojan horse. This was really never about keeping kids healthy. Never quite was. Anyways, I'm about to wrap up this episode. Thank you so much for tuning to all of it. I did want to acknowledge one news item that has been on the news, but has really just been heartbreaking, is the Venezuela Earthquake, holy shit, it's massive. I think it was the 24th, June 24th, even a little before that. Twin earthquake hit Venezuela. They're saying that 2,000 people have perished, 6,000 have been saved, thousands and thousands more are missing. I just saw a recent rescue of this cute little dog that was under the rubbles for days, and they got him out, and he looked so happy. And there's a recent rescue story of this fella that was being fed through a feeding tube for 8 days because he was stuck under the rubble, and they got him out. And it just constantly reminds me that, and even with all the things like with the World Cup, just seeing how people are coming together, just while we are constantly reminded how cruel governments and people in power and even one another can be to one another, we can also be so fucking kind. And it's heartwarming moments like this where we actually see like who the real heroes are of this world. And I'm going to wrap up with this. Speaking of heroes, I saw the Jackass movie, and I want to tell you one thing, dude. It was beautiful. It made me cry. Just seeing the love that these people have for the craft that they do. And I know that you're thinking, what, Jackass, that the stuff where they hit each other in the balls? Yeah. Yes, exactly. Johnny Knoxville and all. Shout out to all of them. The love and the dedication. They love what they do, dude. And I was really so inspired by their dedication, because love is what breeds the discipline, for the dedication. And you could really tell that they love what they do. And they've been doing it for so long, and seeing them age with time and still being who they are. Like, just because you're getting old doesn't mean that you have to get old. My name is Art Delinsky, and I've been giving you a June 2026 roundup. I'm so stoked that you tuned in. I'll be back next week to give you some more of this good educational stuff. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, love, hate, even neutrality, you can hit me up on the social media on Instagram at Art Deli Sideshow. I'm always glad to hear from people. You can also send me like news things that you think are interesting, or just say what up. You can also hit it up on the comments down below, because this is YouTube and I keep forgetting that. Please help me with the algorithm. I appreciate it. Okay, that's all I've got. I love you. Bye.